Hello, friends. We often hear that Hindus are under attack, and opponents wonder how is it so? Because it doesn't seem like it. Hindus were under attack a few centuries ago, like in the medieval period, but it doesn't seem like there is should be some kind of insecurity related to this. It, the population is huge, and people are almost seem like they are practicing in those. So where is the attack? But the real attack is not something physical. It's almost like the change of the civilization. The way the civilization is diverted and drifted away from its religious symbolism, religious knowledge, and we are also abandoning the rituals and all kind of the things that we inherited from our ancestors are slowly degrading. So, how did it happen? And what are the consequences? Actually, the consequences are visible even in this era, and I suspect almost around 100 or 200 years later, it will be difficult to say there was even a Hinduism because the education that we adopted from the British, right from that time, it moved away from the religious education and took the track of secular education. So, while that was beneficial to some extent because we have our jobs because of that, and many people achieve some kind of growth in their career only due to the secular education, but it also drifted away from the character. Like Swami Vivekanand also wanted to point out that the character building is important, and that is slowly degrading in Indians. We are like a cheap copy of Westerns because uh, we are trying to copy what they do in their life, and we don't have our own life while they would still have a culture of themselves. We won't have a culture, we won't have something that we inherited from our ancestors, and we would not be able to retain it. So the signs are visible. People are killing each other, husbands and wives. Although husbands has been killing by their wives for a very long time, but recently wives have also started killing their husbands. So it has seemed like a surprising change. But so so how did we arrive in this situation? We have to look into it further deeply, and I see that because of the reason that we drifted away from the religious education, that seems to be the real culprit. So when the Hinduism got attacked from the colonial rulers by the help of missionaries, they started questioning some of the things that seemed uncomfortable for Hindus to answer. Some of the things that they were not themselves equipped enough with the knowledge to answer it properly. They were possibly into mugging the scriptures, and they were not really able to find a way to answer it properly, nor they seemed not nor it seemed that they owe an explanation to those Westerns who just say random things, and they didn't think that it would become quite a huge issue, but eventually it did. So some of the things that colonial rule started, like Aryan invasion theory, it broadened the gap between the North Indians and South Indians. It also seeded the idea that one was the attacker and the other was just a victim. Like it planted the idea that one community is just as foreigner as the Britishers themselves, and perhaps they justified their own oppression by saying that the one part living here were already oppressing the other part. So seemed like they justified the colonial rule that time through that the Aryan invasion theory. But even after the British left, this thing still remained in the picture, and the picture was of some kind of Mool Nivasi movement, like aborigines of this land were oppressed for quite a long time. And the biggest evidence they come up with the Manusmriti, which is quite controversial, although we do not have any historical evidences of the things that were mentioned in that book were actually practiced in that, or even after in the coming era. There were some verses, and they were quite violent in nature. But overall, the Manusmriti carries the burden of being the symbol of the biggest oppressor, Brahmanical patriarchy. So this kind of movement that generalizes the entire Hinduism as the oppressive patriarchal system that oppresses almost every other person other than the Brahmins themselves. But the real attack is not on the Brahmanas or the Manusmriti. The real attack is on the Hinduism through the lens of the Manusmriti. It is just like a focal point on which you put the ray and it gets distributed all over the entire religion. And it seemed like they are quite right about it. So why are we not able to pass that? Because I think most of the people, even those who pick up the verses from the Manusmriti and those who try to answer it, they both have not read it. They don't know the context. They just pick up the verses and the other person says that it can't be, but for how long it will continue. Eventually we will accept that, yeah, it happened, but how so? So the real problem is that we have not read our scriptures, we are not in habit of reading it, we don't know what is in it, we cannot refute the claims. Ultimately we will accept, and the most of the generation will just say that drift away from the entire religion, entire culture, they will abandon it, and the Hinduism will be in history. So my urge is this, to read the scriptures, and I think people should read more so that they can survive the attack they are facing. And maybe Hinduism will also survive through the attack. Like I can give you some examples of how severe it is. So one issue that comes out of entire context, and it is quite defamatory, but it is quite dangerous one. It has been coming out from even from the Dalit reformers, and it is still relevant, and I am surprised why people are not getting it, why people still feel that there is no answer to this claim, while it is quite a trivial thing to say. Like take example of Brahma Saraswati story, why it happened. The scriptures say that the creator got intimate with its own daughter, and that's how the world was formed. So this is quite wrong thing to say, and obviously it will bring a shame to the people who, in the believers of the religion, which claims to have a higher moral authority. So how did it happen? There are multiple versions, multiple sources that wanted to take or present the story in multiple ways. One was the Shatpat Brahman, another was Brihadaranyak, and later the issue, uh, later the story was taken by Puranas, which quite deformed it, and to some extent didn't leave any situation from which we would be able to overcome. So it mentioned in quite expressive way. So let's see what actually the issue is. The core philosophy of the idea is that if there is a single creator, then he would create the world. It will come out of him. It will not come out of nowhere. It will eventually come out of him. So how the creator engaged with his creation is the basis of the moral dilemma that ancient seers found quite very depressing way. Like if we say that creator is the father, then almost entire creation is its daughter or sons. But in our philosophy, creator and creation are not just two things. They are still one single entity even after separation. So the philosophy is that the soul is embedded in entire universe. So how do we see it? How do we see that the soul and the universe are integrated, well integrated so much, while we are also stating that the soul was the first thing, soul was only thing that existed for the eternity, and there comes a time or it takes a different form, and sometime then the entire creation vanishes and it comes back into the picture. Then it comes along with itself again. So how do we address it, and why is it a moral dilemma? Because they tried to enforce a human relationship on the creator and the creation, and that's how it arose, how the creator engages with creation. It is there is no better way to address it. That's why in Shatpat Brahman, when they said that Prajapati engaged with his daughter Usha, now here it is not Saraswati, it is Usha. So when he engaged, the other devtas got quite angry. Why is it happening? So they called the Rudra, and he does some kind of punishment for the Prajapati. And this is a moral dilemma that ancient seers saw in this act of creation of the universe. It doesn't happen in other religions because other religions don't have that kind of relationship between the creator and creation. There are two kind of things. That one is that the relationship that human relationship we impose on our gods. That kind of relationship is not existent in the other religion. The second point is that the integration of the creator and the creation, the integration of the soul and the nature, it also does not exist. The soul is not embedded in the entire creation. We are not holding the kind of soul that originally the universe in its real form was. That kind of thing does not exist in other religion. In Hinduism, we have the soul, we have the original soul that is called the Atma or Paramatma. We are having it in our hearts. So this kind of penetration is often viewed as some kind of um, moral degradation. How do we see it? So that was portrayed in that story. That was the and if you want to see how it happened, it is in Brihadaranyaka. It that explains it more correctly. Even in the later chapters, as it explained how the soul get embedded in the entire universe. But before that, in chapter 1.4, it says that there was one singular soul that expanded itself in a shape that consisted of man and woman, and the man and woman got separated. Then the woman suspected that this is the same man from which I was born, so why is it following me? And that becomes the basis of the rape or incest in its strange nature. So, why was soul following the nature was the basis of the moral dilemma that ancient seers viewed. But it is not really that kind of thing that has to bring a lot of shame to the religion itself. It is just a way of expression. And it is important that they seemed it important to highlight this kind of activity, because in the entire scriptures they were just imposing the human relationships between the gods and even with the humans. But if we talk about that kind of thing, the other religion find even bigger moral dilemma than the Hinduism when they were dealing with the expansion of the human race, because they started with one person and his wife, and then entire earth had to be populated, although there seems no reason to do it, because there are so many specials. Why talk about Hinduism? Why talk about humans and such a need to populate the earth through the humans? That doesn't seem like that kind of necessity a god should have, but then ultimately they did. And the reason they justified the incestuous kind of relationship for the beginning humans is that they thought that it is needed to do so. While in Hinduism, we don't see that kind of need, and neither the initial population began through incest. So that is the thing that separates us and them, that the initial human population, as we see, the creator, when produced Manu and Shatrupa, the children were not in incestuous relationship. That is the biggest distinction between our cultures. So that is one kind of perspective that we have to look, that it is not that we are in such a shameful mode that we have to be ashamed of the things that we have written. Now, I would see just as the seers saw it, and wanted to highlight it this way, because they thought that it is important to address this issue when they are trying to have a human-like relationship with all of the people. There are other kind of issues that are often highlighted in the scriptures, like the issue of Indra and Ahilya. That is also one kind of rape, although I can say that it is not presented in very correct manner. There was a symbolism, and it is easier to say that it is just symbolical, but eventually that is. Indra is often portrayed as the sun, and Ahilya is just the night. So they wanted to present it in this way, that sun is degrading the beauty of the night, and that's how they saw it. Gotham is obviously the moon because it moves fast, so it is one name of moon is Gotham also, and Indra is the sun, obviously. So there, this kind of symbolism, they saw it this way, they wrote it this way, and didn't have to view it in this manner. Although it is a matter of research why Valmiki Ramayana had to bring Lord Ram into the picture and to say that he liberated Ahilya. We can have some kind of symbolism in that. Speaking of Ram, I remember recently Dhruv he also mentioned that Lord Ram used to eat non-veg. So why is vegetarianism in the Vaishnavism, which is completely focused on Lord Ram and Krishna itself, is vegetarian, while Lord Ram himself used to eat the non-veg. So that is one also the issue that occurs because people don't read the books properly and still want to take the verses out of the context and without knowing what other things are said in the previous things, because the answer is quite simple. I have addressed in one of the previous videos that in Ayodhya Kand, Lord Ram promises that he will not eat any non-veg while being in the forest. So once he already made a promise, it doesn't. It seems like a contradiction if he does something else while in the forest. So why he does it? That does not happen because that is how the Gita Press interprets the verses which contains Mans. It says that it is mentioning pulp of the fruit and not the animals itself. So the verses can be interpreted exactly in the vegetarian form. It doesn't have to go to the non-veg route. I think the biggest issue with Hinduism and the attack on the Hinduism is not just some of the things that are spread in the scriptures, but the claim that Hinduism carries the burden of the creator of the Indian caste system. And I find it quite funny because the way it is presented as if the biggest culprit of this monstrous caste system is Hinduism. It didn't happen like that. So I asked from many people, can they give me one book that mentions all the castes, all the 4 lakhs castes that Hinduism created? They must have somewhere noted it. They must have made an index that today I'm going to create these 5 kind of classes, 5 kind of castes, and today I'm assigning these 5 people, these five classes. It didn't happen like that. They don't have a history. They don't have an index. They don't know what look like. Even verbally, it is not possible to create a caste out of a thin air and assign people that this is your caste, you go live with it. And all the people who would be coming in your next generation will have to practice the same occupation that you do. That kind of power that people assume in Brahmanas, it has to be non-existent. They didn't have that much power. It doesn't seem like it, nor they can enforce it even through the Kshatriyas. That is quite impractical. They cannot go in the forest and assign occupation to the forest dwellers what they do. So one day they were collecting the leaves of one kind of tree, and Brahmanas go and assign them that they now need to collect trees or leaves of other kind of tree. That didn't happen. So how did caste system came into thing? Is Hinduism actually the real culprit of creating it? I don't think so. It didn't happen like that. The castes had to exist for a very long time. I think before Hinduism came into picture, and caste had to be created even throughout the history, one by one, not by the force of the religion itself, but perhaps by their own agenda. That's how they moved away from them. Like some people might have outcasted some of their core members. They moved out and create another caste. It could have happened. Many of the Brahmanas were outcasted for quite a long time. Once they were outcasted, they would have formed another caste because they couldn't integrate to their previous varna. So, and they could have still carried the Gotra system that Brahmanas carry. So this kind of thing could have happened. I think religion cannot take the blame of creating the caste system. It is quite impractical and it didn't happen. It's most ridiculous thing the people believe in, and it's the most ridiculous thing. I find it quite amusing how they are not able to refute it. It's quite funny. So that is one thing. We we tried for very long time to make a distinction between Varna and Jati, but somehow Manusmriti integrated it to some extent, and they said that you'll have to take 7 more births to become one. Or even though in history we have examples of movement of people from one varna to another, and that was the intention of creating the varna. So varna is one thing and jati is another. Jati was present before Hinduism existed. I think before Vedic civilization existed. It there would have been people. I think yeah, there would have been people around all over the India and the forests. They would have their own tribes. Obviously, their tribes would have names. They would have a specialized occupation. Not all would have wanted to go to the um, go to be part of the rituals that Brahmanas used to carry out. So obviously, now one more thing that comes into my mind. So the prohibition of the Shudras to the Vedic rituals. It is also the thing that if someone is not well versed in the Sanskrit, he would pronounce it incorrectly. Like I was creating a video that made a version of Vedic mantras, and I got a comment that it had to be pronounced in exactly one format, that in the way in which the Vedic mantras should be recited. And I agreed, and so I stopped creating it because it can be dangerous. So that is how the most violent verse of Manusmriti. You can say that Manusmriti is it is quite outrageous to believe that they could have think of doing it, like putting wax at the ears of the people who have learned it, who have heard a Vedic verse. So they were very protective about it. They were very protective about the mantras, and they wanted to enforce that nobody should hear it if he is not well versed, if he is not properly educated enough to pronounce it properly. And they feared that if it is pronounced incorrectly, the mantras will bring massive destruction in the region. So that was their fear.